Yes, but in a book or on a tablet? Well, actually, there are programs that allow you to underline. And when I was at school, we weren't allowed to write on our books because the books had to be used by the next year. It's different now. Books are personalized, yes? Which one? Depends. Yeah, okay. So, think about the RAP model in terms of whether it's there to replace, amplify, or transform. I think the content in these devices can be different. Yeah, it can provide interactivity. You can communicate with others. You have, okay. But at the same time, when we were talking in the olden days about technology, we used to apply the 4Bs test as well. Do you know what the 4Bs test is? Bed, bath, bus, and beach. Can you use them in those 4 places? And at the time, you couldn't with computers. But now, with these devices and protective things, you can. So they're there to be compared. Now, I'm going to go very, very quickly now, so I've got 14 minutes left. And I'm going to talk about some sources of information for you to keep you up to date about innovations involving young learners and teens in digital technology. So be ready for this. It's going to go very quickly in places. Are you ready? Publishers, okay? Now, the publishers produce course books. They also produce teachers' books to help your development. And this is what I recommend if you're interested in technology-enhanced learning. It's by Walker and White, published by Oxford. Now, English Agenda is a site on the British Council that is involved in producing information for teachers. And one of the things they do in English Agenda is the Elton's Innovation Awards, okay? Now, they've been going, if we look at our timeline again, since 2003. And what I've done is I went back through the Elton's Awards and highlighted some of the things that were for young learners and teens. I'm going to go through very quickly. Don't try and take notes. If you want this at the end, you can email me. I'll send it to you. But you can go and have a look yourself. So I'm just going to go through this very quickly. I'm not going to speak. I'm just going to let you quickly speed read. Are you ready? So it's Pecha Kucha, but I'm not going to talk. Shipman. And I included the dyslexia one because I thought it was a useful online resource for people to access. And also the Disabled Access Friendly campaign I think is a worthwhile one to mention. Now the Digital English Kitchen from Newcastle University, that is an example of the Internet of Things. They set up a kitchen where all the utensils and devices in the kitchen were Internet enabled and were communicating with each other. And so people were taken through how to cook a meal by using the devices. It's quite an interesting project, and it shows it's innovative, certainly. Now the ARM, the augmented reality media, again this is interesting, using augmented reality. I think it's Arusma is the app that's used. You can actually create pictures and prompts that when you use your camera on your iPad with the app or with your phone, it shows information superimposed on the world. And that can be a really nice thing to do with young learners in terms of vocabulary, animations, etc. I'll tell you about that in a second. The manual for digital video, it's got lots of ideas there for teens and young learners. Nick Peach, it's an affordable book. It's about £5. It's downloadable. It comes on onto an iPad or an Android device. And again, the listening post by Paul Driver, it's another augmented reality application that's got using Aurasma. Yeah? So make a note of Aurasma for augmented reality. There's lots of easy ways to do this as teachers. And that's over the last 14 years. And now we come to 2018, and applications are being accepted until the 3rd of November. And the thing about this is that it's not just publishing companies, but individuals can apply. Yeah? I mean, I heard about some work recently by Christina Corianopoulou, who's doing some really interesting work with economic migrants, project-based work, where they're using smartphones to go out and film themselves interacting in the outside world. They're setting up a website that's to do with their identity. They're coming from different backgrounds. And that's the kind of project I think that could go in as a local innovation award into these awards. So if you're doing stuff that you think is innovative, have a look at the site and think about applying. The worst that can happen is you won't be shortlisted, you won't be nominated. The best that can happen is that you'll win. Now, this screen I dedicate to Catherine, because you talked about white space in the opening plenary, and so I've included some white space in my presentation. So enjoy the white space, and now I move on. So English Agenda also have publications, and this is a particularly interesting one. It's called Innovations in Learning Technologies for English Language Teaching. And it's at the teachingenglish.org.co website. And there are, in this publication, it's a book, it's downloadable, it's free. The first 2 chapters are concerning case studies of innovations in the primary sector and in the secondary sector from different contexts around the world, using different technologies. So I encourage you to go there, download it, and read the first 2 chapters, or 1 or 2, depending on your own content. Now, another publication that came out, and this isn't specifically about technology, but when you're using technology, quite often you have creative projects that you're doing with learners, digital literacy projects. Now, the C group, the C stands for what? Creativity. It's the creativity group. And this was set up by, I think it was in Harrogate in 2014 at IATEFL. Alan Maley, who's a big name, he wanted people to get more creative in ELT. And so they brought out this book, and it was edited by Alan Maley and Nick Peachy. And just recently, they've brought out a new book, and it's called Integrating Global Issues in the Creative Language Classroom, with reference to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. This came out just a few weeks ago. And so I urge you to go and download these books and have a look. Now, blogs and websites. There's a great website called ELT Jam. If you search ELT Jam, you'll find it. It's talking about innovations at the industry publisher level. But it gives lots of examples of apps and things you can do. It's not about classroom practice, but about how things are changing. Nick Peachy is a blogger to follow. Follow Nick. He's got lots of brilliant ideas. ELT Chat. Angelos Volos is involved in this with Marisa Konstantinidis, and it's a Twitter group where you can subscribe, and there are discussions via Twitter about various issues. Nikki Hockley, Russell Stannard, Jamie Keddy, Kieran Donaghy, who's coming as a plenary speaker. Nick is a plenary speaker at the convention, and many others. Try and get into the people who are blogging and talking about things. Keep up to date that way. The Horizon reports are brought out every year in the States from the New Media Consortium. They have 2 editions, one's for higher education, one's for K-12 education. And what they do is they look at what's coming, what are the new technologies, what's going to happen next, what's on the horizon, basically. And they come out every year, they're free to download, they have an executive summary, and they're quite fun to read. The K-12 edition looks at emerging technologies for the impact on and use in teaching, learning, creative inquiry in schools. And they look at the short-term, mid-term, and long-term predictions. And in the latest edition, 2012, the challenges they identified was improving digital literacy, rethinking the roles of teachers, and sustaining innovation through leadership changes, which they regarded as a wicked problem, most difficult. So one of the thoughts there is that leadership may be inhibiting perhaps some of the uptake in innovation. So if you look at the Horizon report, you see the short term, 1 or 2 years, they're talking about coding. Actually, computer coding is becoming part of literacy. And robotics in schools, and learning about robotics. Now this has got implications for the future, and a lot of jobs are going to go through the use of robots and artificial intelligence. The good news is, it's not going to affect teachers that much. They're one of the most protected professions from this, but it is going to affect the wider society. Midterm, we're talking about analytics technologies, being able to analyze student interactions from big data, and produce materials that become adaptive and personalized. Virtual reality and augmented reality as technologies within the next 1 to 2 years. That shouldn't say 1 to 2 years. There's been a mistake. I don't know why it says that. It didn't say it before. It's not changed. I can't explain it. But it's 2 to 5 years and 5 years or more. There are gremlins in the works. Somebody did it. Well, it's your fault. Artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, as I mentioned, devices communicating through the Internet. What's the digital future of ELT? I could ask Siri. Hey Siri, what's the digital future of ELT?
For what's the digital future, Lieutenant, have a look.
Hey Siri.
Hi.
What's the meaning of life? Doesn't want to tell me. I've been asking it too much today. Adaptive materials based on learning analytics and big data. Personalization of learning and instruction. Increased use of artificial intelligence, natural language processing and interaction with chatbots, and automated assessments. I highlighted but didn't mention, for example, Pearson now have tests that they can assess spoken English and written English automatically without the intervention of a human examiner. So a lot of these technologies are coming on stream. They're not going to take away teachers' jobs. They're going to change, possibly, how we work. I'm not from a position of technological determinism. I don't think these technologies are going to necessarily change things in a certain way. But I do think as teachers in the profession, we need to be thinking about how we want to embrace or not these technologies and how to best use them in our profession. Questions, I only have 1 minute left, so there's 1 minute for questions. Does anybody have a question? If not, you can ask me in the party. I'm thinking about my glass of wine now. Yes? My own personal view about the whole situation in terms of digitization and technologies. I think there's so many ways it could go. I mean, the old saying is that teachers won't be replaced by technology, but some teachers might be replaced, if they're not using technology, by teachers who are. I think that technology has become ingrained in our lives. Our students are using them. We are. I think more and more we're going to be using this kind of device rather than a printed book. I have great concerns about privacy, about information that's being shared by social media. If you think about facial recognition, if you think about the fact that it's not just what you type, but what you are thinking can now be interpreted by some of your reactions that are actually imperceivable to us in terms of body language, but the computer can notice it. So there are big issues. And a lot of these issues aren't being discussed openly. And I think as a profession, we need to sort of be asking these questions and seeing where things go. So I don't have there are no ready-made answers. As I say, your mileage may vary, but I think there are very sort of big global issues about education and ESL that we need to address and discuss. I think that the classroom works really well in terms of speaking practice and interaction. And I think the technology works really well in a kind of a flipped way to prepare the learners to come into the classroom to interact and socialize and practice speaking skills. And I think that's kind of a direction we're going in, where more work will be done outside the classroom in preparation for quality time with the teacher and peers. I have to stop now. That's 1 minute over. Thank you. My email address is there. If you want to have a copy of this, email me and I'll send you a slightly edited version of it. Okay? Thank you very much. Oh.
From TESOL Greece.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Great, Mark. I really enjoyed that. Have you read The Circle? Have you read the book The Circle?
No, I haven't, no.
Graham Stanley
Oh, right, yes.
recommended it to me. Just a second, I'm so sorry.
I've got to put my jacket on now.
Oh, you don't have to.